So the questions that I did was question number 1, 6, and 7, and I'm going to be starting off with question number 1. So Jesus is God's son that he sent down to earth to save us from our sins, to help people and tell people about God. Sorry, I thought I had to sneeze. One of my favorite stories is when Jesus multiplied the food portions of 1 bread and 1 fish to feed 5,000 people that came to listen to him. In Matthew 22, verse 37, Jesus says, "You shall love the Lord with all your heart, soul, and mind." This says that we must love God and worship him and never doubt him. Jesus taught us that if he died on the cross, that means that our sins would be forgiven and we could come live with him and God in heaven. In John 12, verse 1 through 8, Jesus rises from the dead when Mary, Martha, and Lauren, I don't really know how to pronounce his name, came to visit his tomb. This matters to my life today because it gives me reassurance and hope that God is with me when I die, and I'll be with him and Jesus in heaven. So that was number 1. Question number 6, and then the next one that I did was question number 6, and my answer was, one thing that I learned in confirmation this year is that God is always included Jesus, and God has always included everyone, not only the popular people, but the poor people, the people that didn't believe in him. He's always included them, and I learned that about myself, and something that I can impact on is that I shouldn't only be talk to my friends, and I should talk to the people that I'm not really friends with, or I don't really talk too much. I should include them in what I'm doing and talk to them, just like Jesus did. One thing that I will never forget about this year in confirmation is when we went to Acres for Joy and we really saw the animals and we prayed to God, and how one of the people that worked there, I can't remember if it was the owner or not, but his daughter actually died, and she went through lots of rough times, and she went through lots of sicknesses, and he had to turn to God and pray to him to help him, and that really helps me because when I'm going through a tough time, I know that God can be with me just like he did with that guy and his daughter not doing very well. Just like in, gotta sneeze again. Sorry, excuse me. Just like in verse 1 Peter, verse 5 through 7, cast all your anxiety on him because he cares about you. The thing that I learned about that was I can really go to him to tell him all my worries, and I know he'll be there for me. One thing that I learned about my group this year is how much they relate to me and how much we have things in common, so we can kind of talk about it and discuss our worries and discuss our hope and stuff like that. And then my last one is question number 7. And my answers to those questions were, a struggle in my life that I have is studying and worrying about getting a good grade on a test, and if I'll do well or not. And yes, it does sometimes impact my relationship with God, because if I'm like really stressful or like something happens, sometimes I'll be like, God, like, why don't you help me through this hard time? And I feel like he's not with me, but he really is. And then it's also impacted me because some of those tests are on Thursdays, and although I study throughout the week, I get afraid that I won't do very well. So during confirmation, sometimes I'm thinking about that, and I should be focusing on God. Sorry. A verse that really helps me through a time that I'm stressed out is when God said, just like in verse Psalms 2, just like in Psalms 2, verse 2 through 3, he says, "You bring me beside still water and restore my life." That means like when I'm worried, he'll calm me down and make me feel like a reassurance of safety. That really helps me in my life when I'm worried about bad things happening to me. I can also look to him when I'm worried. I can also look to him when I'm worried and pray to him. Just like in Psalms 23, when David says, God's love and goodness will follow me throughout my days of my life. Throughout all my days of my life, God has already given me reassurance. When I see scary things, God has already given me reassurance. When I see like scary things on the news about North Korea, or the news like says like kind of nerve-wracking things, I know that I can turn to God and be like, just make sure I'm not scared. Or like the things that have been happening at schools, like make sure just watch over us today, and make sure I just feel safe, and just please watch over us and keep us safe. And that reminds me that God is with me no matter what.